Welcome back. Tonight, we uncover one of America's most chilling cold cases, a story of betrayal, poison, and a woman who stopped at nothing to get what she wanted. Subscribe and join us as we dive into the twisted truth behind the headlines. My husband has locked himself in our bedroom for the past day. I am a little worried because I have not spoken to him since Sunday at 5 in the morning. He locked me out of the bedroom. On August 26, 2005, when a 911 call was made, the voice of Stacy Castor could be heard. Her voice was trembling and she sounded breathless. It seemed as if a frightened wife was begging for help for her husband. Within a short time, the police arrived. They forced open the bedroom door. Inside, her husband was found dead and naked on the bed, covered with sheets and vomit. On the nightstand was a green liquid, and under the bed was an open bottle of antifreeze. Later, a jury concluded that the 911 call had been a performance. This is the story of a woman who murdered 2 husbands with antifreeze, tried to kill her own daughter, and then attempted to frame that same daughter for the crime. In 2005, Liverpool, a quiet suburb in Onondaga County, was where Stacy Castor lived with her second husband, David Castor. They had married in August 2003 and had been together for 2 years. David, age 48, owned Liverpool Heating and Air Conditioning, a successful heating and cooling company that he had built with his father. He was a successful businessman who owned motorcycles, jet skis, snowmobiles, a house, and a business that gave him stability. Friends described him as disciplined, hardworking, passionate about outdoor activities, and completely dedicated to his work. According to Stacy, however, David's life had changed after his father died in early 2005. She claimed he became depressed and started drinking heavily on Friday evening, August 19, 2005. The couple allegedly argued. Stacy said David told her to pack her belongings and leave with her 2 daughters. 5 minutes later, he changed his mind and threatened her if she dared to leave. After that, he went into the bedroom and locked the door. Stacy claimed she waited through Saturday and Sunday. She heard no sound from inside the room. When she knocked or called his name, there was no response. Finally, on Sunday afternoon, August 26 at 5 p.m., Stacy picked up the phone and called 911. "I haven't spoken to him since Sunday at 5 in the morning when he locked me out of the bedroom," she told the operator. Her voice was anxious but not panicked. When police entered the room, they found David lying face down on the bed. 2 cups were on the nightstand, one containing a green liquid and another containing cranberry juice. Nearby were bottles of apricot brandy and cranberry juice, and under the bed was the open antifreeze bottle. There was no suicide note. Antifreeze contains ethylene glycol, a highly toxic chemical commonly used in vehicle cooling systems. If swallowed, it can cause severe organ failure and death. Stacy told investigators that before David locked himself in the bedroom, she had given him a cup of cranberry juice. She denied any knowledge of the second cup containing antifreeze. Based on her account, investigators initially concluded that David, depressed after his father's death, had committed suicide by drinking antifreeze. The medical examiner confirmed antifreeze poisoning, and the case was closed as a suicide. Stacy inherited everything from her husband, but some people did not believe the suicide story. David's friends and family insisted he would never have taken his own life. One detective, Dominic Spinelli, felt that something was wrong. To understand why, investigators looked further back into Stacy's past. Before David, Stacy had been married to Michael Wallace. She met him when she was 17, and they married on April 7, 1990. They had 2 daughters, Ashley and Bree. Relatives said the family struggled financially but seemed happy. Michael was devoted to his daughters and participated in many of their activities. Ashley later expressed so much love for her father that time could not erase it. Michael took her camping with Girl Scouts, helped her earn badges, and took part in every activity with his daughter. Over time, however, the marriage deteriorated and the couple decided to divorce. Before the divorce was finalized, Michael developed mysterious symptoms: difficulty walking, trouble speaking, constant coughing, swelling, and purple discoloration of his skin. On one occasion, he sat up in front of the whole family, vomited on the coffee table, then lay back down and slept as if nothing had happened. 3 months before his death, Michael told a doctor that he felt intoxicated even though he had not been drinking. Later, experts would identify this as a classic symptom of antifreeze poisoning. On January 11, 2000, Ashley, who was 12 years old at the time, came home from school and found her father unconscious on the couch. His face was distorted, as if making a strange expression. She panicked and called her mother. Stacy came home. Michael did not respond to anything. An ambulance was called. Stacy told everyone he had suffered a heart attack. Michael was only 38 years old. His sister, Rosie Wallace, wanted an autopsy, but Stacy strongly opposed it, saying Michael would not have wanted his body cut open. She fought hard to prevent the autopsy and ultimately got her way. No autopsy was performed. At the time, police had no reason to suspect foul play, so no criminal investigation was launched. A man died of a heart attack, tragic, but not a crime. The case was closed. Immediately after the funeral, Stacy received $55,000 from Michael's life insurance policy. She buried her husband in the cemetery and purchased a plot right next to his grave for herself. Then she took both daughters to Disney World. Life moved on. Stacy got a new job and started over. She looked like a young widow trying to stay strong for her children. About a year after Michael Wallace's death, Stacy met a new person. In 2001, she was hired as an office manager at Liverpool Heating and Air Conditioning, and her boss was David Castor, recently divorced, mature, and successful. Stacy later described David in the most beautiful words. David was my support, my strength, and my security. He was very disciplined, completely dedicated to his work, and loved outdoor activities. They dated and married in August 2003. The new family had challenges from the start. David did not want to be a stepfather to Stacy's daughters. The girls themselves later said that he told them he did not want to be their father and wanted no part of being a father. He already had children and did not want more. Stacy did not like this. David also had his own family from before. His son, David Castor Jr., was from his first marriage to Janice Posente. After a serious head injury from an ATV accident, David's personality changed and there was conflict between father and son. But that did not mean David Jr. did not care about his father, and Janice, who knew David best, made sharp comments about Stacy. He had motorcycles, jet skis, snowmobiles, a house, a business, and I think Stacy planned to take it all. Now, regarding David's death in August 2005, the medical examiner had ruled it a suicide by antifreeze. Once again, Stacy inherited everything from her husband. But one detective could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. Detective Dominic Spinelli of the Onondaga County Sheriff's Office later said, "The voice inside me was telling me something was wrong. This wasn't right." And Spinelli's instinct had truth behind it. He knew about antifreeze. David had owned a heating and cooling company and regularly worked with chemicals. He knew that drinking antifreeze caused a slow and extremely painful death, taking many hours as internal organs gradually shut down. Why would someone who understood that choose this way to die while locked in a room? Another detail also alerted Spinelli. During the conversation, Stacy casually mentioned that she knew ethylene glycol was the main ingredient in antifreeze. That was not normal knowledge for a woman who did not work with chemicals or cars. Then calls started coming in. David's ex-wife, Janice Posente, immediately called Spinelli. "He did not commit suicide. I know him better than anyone. He would never do that. He would never choose this way to end his life." Spinelli began digging deeper. He pulled Michael Wallace's file. He compared both cases, and what he found made him shudder. Disturbing similarities emerged. Both men died suddenly. Both were relatively young and healthy. Both were married to the same woman. Both were buried side by side in the same cemetery at Stacy's request. Physical evidence also raised serious questions. The antifreeze cup found beside David's bed contained 3 fingerprints, all belonging to Stacy. None belonged to David. Think about it. If a man pours antifreeze into a cup and drinks it himself, why would his fingerprints not be on the cup? Investigators also found a turkey baster in the kitchen trash. It contained traces of ethylene glycol on the tip, and David's DNA was found on it. Police believed it had been used to force antifreeze into David's mouth after he was unconscious and unable to resist. In addition, toxicology tests showed that David had no alcohol in his system, contradicting Stacy's claim that he had been drinking heavily before committing suicide. Spinelli began to suspect that Michael Wallace's death had also been caused by the same chemical. The only way to know for sure was to exhume his body, but that would be highly controversial. Digging up someone buried a decade earlier was no easy decision, and Spinelli needed court approval. All signs pointed to one person, but suspicion is not proof. Everyone saw Stacy Castor as a grieving widow. While Detective Spinelli quietly built his case, Stacy Castor wasted no time. Immediately after David's death in August 2005, she presented a will. It left all of David's assets, approximately $300,000, including the house, business, and vehicles, to Stacy and her 2 biological daughters, Ashley and Bree. David Castor's only biological son, David Jr., was completely cut out. Not a penny, not a single item, as if he did not exist. But there were problems with that will. It was dated 2003, but the 2 witnesses who signed it, Stacy's close friends Lynn and Paul Pulaski, actually signed it after David's death in 2005. Stacy had convinced them to sign. Lynn Pulaski later said that at the time, she considered Stacy like a sister and her best friend. Stacy explained that she needed the will notarized to settle her late husband's debts. The Pulaskis signed without asking further questions. They did not know or did not want to know that they were signing a forged document created after the person who made the will was already in the ground. While David's family was still grieving, Stacy began redecorating the house immediately after the funeral. New furniture, new layout, as if she were preparing for a new chapter in her life that she had planned long in advance. Looking at the complete financial picture, Stacy received $55,000 from Michael Wallace's life insurance in 2000. From her second husband, David Castor, she received approximately $200, $0 in assets and insurance, plus another $300,000 in real estate through the forged will. Detective Spinelli later said coldly, "This was the easiest way to get rid of someone. She didn't have to go through the hassle of divorce. No lawyers, no property division, no custody battles. Just a cup of green liquid, patience, and a person dies and everything becomes yours." It was always about the money, but to prove this in court, police needed more than fingerprints on a cup and a turkey baster in the trash. They needed proof that Stacy had done this not once but twice. They needed a body that had been buried for 7 years. Ultimately, Detective Dominic Spinelli launched a covert surveillance operation on Stacy Castor that lasted 2 years. Police installed surveillance cameras at Stacy's house to monitor every move. They also installed cameras at the cemetery where Stacy's two husbands, Michael Wallace and David Castor, were buried side by side at her own request. Her cell phone and home phone were monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from 2005 to 2007. The detective's logic was simple. If Stacy truly loved her two deceased husbands, as she always claimed, if she was truly a grieving widow who had lost the two loves of her life, she would visit their graves at least once on anniversaries, birthdays, or holidays. But the results only strengthened the investigation team's belief in Spinelli's intuition. During the entire 2 years of surveillance, Stacy Castor never once set foot in the cemetery. Not once. A woman who called herself a widow who had lost two husbands never visited either grave. Along with surveillance, detectives began combing through Michael Wallace's medical records. Stacy had told everyone that Michael had serious heart disease, that he was an alcoholic and drug addict, that his body had been deteriorating for a long time. But when detectives obtained Michael's actual medical records, the truth was completely opposite. Detective Michael Naughton later said, "She claimed he had all kinds of respiratory problems. We brought in his medical records. The worst thing that ever happened to him was a hernia. Michael Wallace was completely healthy, no heart disease, no organ problems. Stacy had lied." Then detectives found a crucial piece of information in the medical records. About 3 months before his death, around October 1999, Michael had seen a doctor and complained that he felt intoxicated, even though he had not had a single drink. Later, Onondaga County Prosecutor William Fitzpatrick told the court that this was a classic symptom of antifreeze poisoning. When ethylene glycol enters the body, it creates a feeling similar to being drunk: dizziness, stumbling, slurred speech, blurred vision, and then it begins destroying the kidneys and internal organs. Michael Wallace had described the exact symptoms of poisoning to his doctor, but in 1999, no one paid attention. Now, Detective Spinelli faced a major decision. He concluded that Stacy had killed both men. The only way to prove it was to exhume Michael Wallace's body. This decision had a scientific basis. When a person consumes ethylene glycol, the body converts it into calcium oxalate crystals that accumulate in the kidneys and liver. These crystals do not break down, not after months, not after years. They remain in the body for decades, even after death and burial. If detectives found calcium oxalate crystals in Michael's body, it would mean he had been given antifreeze, not that he died of a heart attack. And if both husbands died from the same poison, the only woman present in both cases would be the prime suspect. But this was an extremely controversial decision. Exhuming someone buried nearly 7 years earlier was no small matter. It required a court order and approval from the medical examiner's office, and it had to be kept completely secret so Stacy would not find out. On September 5, 2007, the body was exhumed in secret. Stacy's activities were being closely monitored to ensure she had no idea what was happening at the cemetery. Michael Wallace's coffin was lifted from the ground after 7 years. Detective Spinelli later recalled the moment. "When Michael Wallace's coffin was raised from the ground, I wondered what he was saying. Now is the time for you people to investigate, because I did not kill myself." The body was taken by ambulance to the medical examiner's office. A few days later, the medical examiner called Detective Naughton. Everything changed with that phone call. "We just finished the examination. I have the results for you. Guess what? His body is full of crystals. Calcium oxalate crystals in the kidneys and liver, definitive proof of ethylene glycol poisoning. He was given antifreeze, the same poison that killed David Castor 5 years later. After 7 years in the ground, science finally told the truth for Michael Wallace. But this was also the part that frustrated detectives. The exhumation results only proved that both men had consumed the chemical. It did not prove that Stacy had given it to them. 2 deaths from the same poison, the same wife, the same pattern, but those were circumstantial evidence, not direct proof. Detectives still needed more, so Spinelli decided to take the next step. He called Stacy Castor in for questioning. 2 husbands, 1 wife, the same poison, the same pattern. Police now had a double homicide case, but Stacy Castor still did not know they were coming. On September 7, 2007, just 2 days after Michael Wallace's body was secretly exhumed, detectives called Stacy Castor back to the police station for another interview. Detective Valerie Brogan later said, "She was nervous, pacing around and surprised that we were there." Stacy did not know Michael Wallace had been exhumed. She did not know calcium oxalate crystals had been found. She did not know police now considered her a suspect in a double homicide. She only knew something was changing and she needed to control the situation. During the interrogation, Stacy made a slip of the tongue. She immediately tried to correct herself, but it was too late. One word, one mistake, and everything changed. Detectives watching from the next room through a screen were stunned. One of them later said, "Those of us watching the interview said, 'Oh my God, that was a Freudian slip.'" Stacy realized what she had just said and insisted it was just a slip of the tongue, that she meant to shorten the word because she was thinking of something else. She accused the detectives of trying to frame her, but the interview was not over, and Stacy kept making mistakes. When Spinelli picked up a folder to put away a photo of the two cups, Stacy saw another photo inside, a photo of a turkey baster. Her reaction was immediate and noticeable. "What is that? Why is there a picture of a turkey baster?" she asked, her voice tense. Spinelli calmly replied, "Don't worry about it. The interview is over. Think about this. Why would an innocent person be afraid of a photo of a common kitchen utensil? A turkey baster is just a turkey baster, unless you know it was used to pour antifreeze into an unconscious man's mouth." During the interview, Stacy also mentioned that she had watched a TV show about a woman who killed 2 husbands with antifreeze. In the middle of the interrogation, she asked for a lawyer, but by then, it was too late. Detective Naughton later said she asked for a lawyer, but before that, she had already made some mistakes. And there was one more thing, something that became the strongest piece of evidence in the entire case. During the interview, Stacy mispronounced the word antifreeze, dropping the final sound. She naturally said antifree, as if that were the correct pronunciation. Even though she had heard detectives pronounce it correctly dozens of times in front of her, she never realized she was saying it wrong. And that small detail would come back to haunt her in the most devastating way imaginable. After the interview, pressure was mounting on Stacy Castor. She knew police suspected her. She knew they had exhumed Michael. She knew the net was tightening. She was desperate to prove her innocence. And so Stacy Castor took a final step, one that a judge later called the cruelest act seen in the justice system in 34 years. One word, one slip of the tongue. It took only a second. But antifree did not stop with that interview. It reappeared 4 times in black and white, exactly as Stacy Castor had written it in her daughter's suicide note. There were 2 bodies with the same poison. They had the antifree slip. But all of this was still circumstantial. So they kept waiting, kept surveilling, kept watching. And while police waited, Stacy Castor panicked. She knew police were investigating her. She knew they had exhumed Michael. She knew the pressure was increasing day by day. It was too much, and Stacy needed to escape. So she made a decision that would shock all of America. Stacy decided to blame everything on her 20-year-old biological daughter, Ashley Wallace, the child she once called her best friend, the child she said she would die for. It was a final desperate act. It all started on Ashley's first day of college. A few days after Stacy's police interview, investigators went to Ashley's school to find her. They sat her down and told her something she had never known before. Her father, Michael Wallace, the man who took her Girl Scout camping, who helped her earn badges, the man she loved most, had not died of a heart attack. He had been poisoned with antifreeze. Ashley was shocked. She did what any child would do in that situation. She picked up the phone and called her mother. And that is when Stacy began to form her plan. On September 12, 2007, Stacy called Ashley home. She sounded perfectly normal. "We had a difficult time. Come home and have a drink with Mom." Ashley agreed without hesitation. For her, Stacy was not just her mother, she was her best friend, the person she trusted completely, the person she shared everything with. Ashley came home and mother and daughter sat together drinking. The evening passed normally, but the next day, Stacy called Ashley to drink again. This time, she secretly slipped sleeping pills into her daughter's drink. The pills were mixed with vodka, orange juice, and Sprite, a concoction Ashley later described as terrible. Ashley tasted it and refused, saying it tasted strange. Stacy replied, "Just one more sip," and Ashley drank because she trusted her mother. Why would a child suspect their own mother of trying to poison them? Ashley lost consciousness. What happened over the next 17 hours became the most horrifying part of the entire case. For 17 hours, Stacy Castor sat beside her unconscious daughter, spooning vodka and pills into her mouth, far more than any child could consume. And one more terrifying detail. Doctors found codeine in Ashley's system, but no morphine. This indicates she had taken codeine only 1 to 2 hours before being taken to the hospital, meaning Stacy was still shoving pills into her daughter's mouth just before calling 911. While Ashley was dying, Stacy completed the rest of her plan. She sat at the family computer and typed a 750-word suicide note. In the note, Ashley confessed to killing David Castor and Michael Wallace, her biological father, and described in detail how she had poisoned them. The motive Stacy fabricated seemed plausible on the surface. Ashley hated Michael because Bree was his favorite, and Ashley hated David because he was abusive toward her mother. The note even misspelled antifreeze as antifree, exactly the way Stacy had pronounced the word in her police interview days earlier. Stacy placed the note on the table beside Ashley's bed, along with an empty vodka bottle and empty pill bottles, creating the perfect scene of a suicide. And then, while her daughter lay in the bedroom slowly dying hour by hour, Stacy Castor went to the backyard and partied with friends. Prosecutor Garvey later openly told the court, "She was partying with friends in the backyard as if nothing was happening while her daughter was dying in the next room." Prosecutor Fitzpatrick said, "Stacy worked in a medical office. She knew perfectly well that Ashley needed immediate treatment. Every passing hour brought her closer to death, but she deliberately did not call. She wanted Ashley to die. If it had not been for Bree, Stacy's plan would have succeeded. Bree panicked and begged her mother to call an ambulance immediately. It was only when her other daughter forced her that Stacy finally picked up the phone and called 911. "I think my daughter took some pills," she told the operator, her voice filled with fake concern. Then she began to perform. It sounded like something was stuck in her throat. "Ashley!" "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." Once again, a perfect performance, exactly like the 911 call for David 2 years earlier, exactly like the tears when she heard of Michael's death 7 years before. Same script, same actress. Stacy told police that when they arrived, she had found her daughter unconscious. She also said that Ashley had left a note confessing to killing David Castor and Michael Wallace. Think about this, a mother whom Ashley called her best friend, whom Ashley trusted so much that she would drink anything her mother gave her. That mother watched her daughter die slowly for 17 hours. Not out of revenge, not out of madness, but because she needed a scapegoat. She needed someone to take the blame in her place. And she chose the very child she once said she would die for. But Stacy's plan failed. Ashley Wallace survived. The hospital doctors saved her, pulling her back from the brink of death even though her body was filled with enough pills and alcohol to kill an adult. Ashley knew nothing about the note. Detectives arrived at the hospital. They sat beside Ashley's bed and asked her about the 750-word confession found near her bed, in which she confessed to killing her biological father Michael Wallace and stepfather David Castor. Ashley stared at them with blank eyes. She knew nothing about the letter. She had not written it, she had never seen it, she had no idea what was in it. Ashley clearly told police she had never written that confession letter. Then she said the words detectives would never forget. "I did not kill my father. I did not kill my stepfather. I did not try to kill myself. I need to talk to my mother." In that moment, everything changed. Stacy's attempt to make her daughter the scapegoat had failed. Now Ashley was pointing directly at her mother. Detective Naughton later said, Ashley became convinced that her mother had killed her father and David and had tried to kill her. The daughter, who once called her mother her best friend, now realized that her best friend had tried to kill her. Detectives decided to search the family computer. What they found sealed Stacy Castor's fate. On the computer, police found not only the entire confession letter, but also multiple drafts. Stacy had written and rewritten it, editing word by word, making the letter perfect, like a student revising an essay. But the most decisive evidence came from the timestamps. The computer recorded exactly when the letter was written, edited, and saved, and all the timestamps were from hours when Ashley was at school. She could not have been the author because she was not home when the letter was written, combined with wiretap recordings. Prosecutors now proved that Stacy was sitting home alone typing a letter to frame her daughter while Ashley was miles away in class at college. Then came forensic linguistic analysis, and the word antifree returned. In the 750-word confession letter, the word antifreeze was spelled antifree 4 times. It was written exactly the way Stacy had spoken it in her interview with Detective Spinelli days earlier. Ashley testified that she did not know how to spell antifreeze and had never used the word in her life. Stacy had said antifree in the interview, and now her daughter's supposed suicide note spelled it antifree. Has exactly the same. The evidence was overwhelming. Fingerprints on the antifreeze cup, David's DNA and ethylene glycol on the turkey baster, calcium oxalate crystals in Michael Wallace's body 7 years after death, the antifreeze slip in the interview, the fake suicide note typed on Stacy's computer while Ashley was at school with the same misspelling 4 times, multiple drafts on the computer, and medical evidence showing Ashley had been force-fed pills for 17 hours, all of it pointed to one person. Police acted immediately. Stacy Castor was arrested in the hospital parking lot, just meters from the room where her daughter was recovering from the poison she had been given. She was charged with second-degree murder for David Castor's death, second-degree attempted murder for poisoning Ashley Wallace, and forgery for falsifying David's will, prosecutor Fitzpatrick told the press this woman had to be stopped and stopped now. Upon hearing that Ashley had been poisoned, Detective Brogan said 4 words: she tried to kill her own daughter. Stacey Castor was handcuffed just meters from Ashley's hospital room. The woman who claimed she would die for her children was now charged with trying to kill one of them. The upcoming trial would become a confrontation no one could have imagined. Mother and daughter would face each other as witnesses in front of the entire nation. Stacey Castor, 41 years old, faced 3 charges: second-degree murder in David Castor's death, second-degree attempted murder in poisoning Ashley Wallace, and forgery of David's will. If convicted, she faced 25 years to life in prison. Under the leadership of Onondaga County District Attorney William Fitzpatrick, the prosecution did not hide their confidence. Fitzpatrick called it a prosecutor's dream of forensic evidence because this case had everything: computer evidence, DNA evidence, forensic linguistics, and chemical science. They presented both cases to the jury simultaneously: David Castor's death in 2005 and the attempted murder of Ashley Wallace in September 2007. Although Stacey was not charged for Michael Wallace's death in 2000, the judge allowed prosecutors to present evidence from that case to establish a pattern: how ethylene glycol kills, how crystals form in the kidneys and liver, how they remain in the body for years after death, and how the autopsies of both David and Michael showed identical results. Same poison, same wife, same pattern. And then there was Ashley Wallace. When Ashley testified, the entire courtroom fell silent. She sat about 15 meters from her mother, the woman she once called her best friend, who had tried to kill her just a year earlier. Ashley described her childhood as normal, saying her relationship with her mother was fine. She said she loved her father and knew before he died that his health was not good. Then she recalled the night her mother invited her for a drink, the night she was given a drink that tasted horrible, the night she drank it because she trusted her mother, and then remembered nothing until waking up in the hospital. Ashley firmly told the jury, "I did not write the suicide note. I did not know anything about antifreeze. I never took rat poison, and I have never used the word antifreeze in my life." Prosecutor Fitzpatrick later described the moment: "I cannot imagine my own daughter sitting 15 meters away and saying, 'Mom tried to kill me,' and Mom giving no reaction." Stacey sat like a stone while her daughter described how her mother had tried to kill her. Ashley's younger sister Bree also testified against her mother. She was the one who had found Ashley unconscious and begged Stacey for help. Both daughters stood on the side of justice against their biological mother. Defense attorney Charles Keller adopted a shocking strategy. Keller argued that Ashley, who was only 12 years old at the time, had killed her biological father Michael Wallace because he had beaten her badly, and because she was jealous of her sister Bree, who was their father's favorite. Keller also claimed Ashley had killed her stepfather David Castor because he was abusive toward her mother. According to Keller, when police got close, Ashley had actually attempted suicide, and the confession letter was real. Keller presented evidence that Ashley had previously attempted suicide twice, but Ashley told police she had no reason to do so and denied any suicide attempts. The defense called Brooklyn College professor John Roy to testify about linguistic analysis, hoping to cast doubt on who the real author of the letter was. But Fitzpatrick quickly responded, pointing out that Roy had only testified in one trial in his entire career, had never published in any forensic journal, and had no established methodology. Then came Lynn and Paul Pulaski, the 2 friends Stacey had convinced to sign the forged will. They were granted immunity in exchange for their testimony. They testified and confessed everything, confirming that Stacey had persuaded them to sign as witnesses on the forged will. When Stacey herself took the stand, she denied everything. "I did not kill Michael Wallace. I did not kill David Castor, and I did not try to kill my daughter. And I will never say I did that. Never." She simply said, "I would die for my children. I could never hurt them like this. My children are my life. I could never do that to Ashley." Then she blamed her daughter Ashley, who was just 12 years old in 2000, for the murders of both men. Regarding the antifreeze word, Stacey claimed she had deliberately shortened the word because she was thinking of something else. Just an unfortunate coincidence. But when Fitzpatrick began cross-examination, Stacey's testimony collapsed piece by piece. He confronted her every statement with phone wiretap recordings, computer evidence, and timestamps that proved the letter was written while Ashley was at school. Every answer Stacey gave contradicted the evidence. Every denial was met with a document, a recording, or a timestamp. On February 5, 2009, after 4 days and 16 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict: guilty on all 3 counts. Second-degree murder in David Castor's death, second-degree attempted murder and poisoning Ashley Wallace, and forgery of the will. It is important to note that Stacey was convicted of murdering David Castor, her second husband, and attempting to murder Ashley. But she was not charged for the death of her first husband, Michael Wallace. The evidence about Michael was only presented at trial to build the case and show the pattern. But since Stacey was already going to prison, prosecutors decided there was no need for further charges. When the verdict was read, Stacey Castor closed her eyes. She did not cry. She did not scream, she just closed her eyes, as if not seeing reality would make it disappear. A collective sigh rose from the front rows. Ashley sat with her sister Bree and members of the Wallace and Castor families. They hugged each other, tears flowing, but this time they were tears of relief. David's son, David Castor Jr., told reporters, "No sentence is enough, but we will accept what the court gives." Ashley was crying as she left the courtroom without saying a word. The jury later said that most of Stacey's testimony on the witness stand was not credible. They noted the timeline of events and the opportunities Castor had to poison both her husband and her daughter. Then everything clicked together, like pieces of a horrifying puzzle. When the verdict was read, Stacey Castor closed her eyes again. Perhaps she was thinking about her life, the 17-year-old girl from Clay, New York who dreamed of becoming a lawyer, now a 41-year-old woman convicted of murdering her husband and trying to kill her own daughter. But the most painful part was not over yet. That came on sentencing day, and the words spoken that day would echo forever. On March 5, 2009, exactly 1 month after the verdict, Stacey Castor returned to court to hear her sentence. What was said that day became one of the most famous statements in New York criminal history. Prosecutor Christine Garvey spoke first. She asked Judge Joseph Fahey to impose maximum consecutive sentences, meaning each sentence would not run concurrently. The cruelty of David Castor's death and the heartlessness of the attempted murder of Ashley deserved the harshest punishment allowed by law. Garvey reminded the court of an event that silenced the entire room. While Ashley lay unconscious in the bedroom, slowly dying hour by hour, Stacey was in the backyard partying with friends, as if nothing was happening. Garvey said, "She is cold, calculating, and has no remorse for what she did. Human life is sacred. For Stacey Castor, human life means nothing, not even her own flesh and blood." Then Ashley Wallace stood up. She stood before her mother, the woman who had tried to kill her, and said things no one who heard them would ever forget. "I didn't know what hate was until now," Ashley said in a trembling but steady voice. "Even though I hate you, I also love you. That makes me sad. It is very confusing. How can you hate and love someone at the same time?" She paused for a moment, then said, "I just want you to apologize for everything you did, including all the lies." Ashley looked directly at her mother and said, "No matter how bad this hurts me, this is goodbye, Mom. No matter how hard you tried, I survived and I will keep living because now I have people around me who love me." Think about those words. It was not just a speech of hatred, it was a daughter's speech, a survivor's speech. It was more powerful than any punishment a court could give. Then Judge Joseph Fahey, who had spent weeks listening to evidence, testimonies, tears, and lies, looked directly at Stacey Castor and said the words that would appear in every documentary, every article, and every book written about this case. "As a lawyer and judge with 34 years of experience in the criminal justice system, I have seen serial killers, contract killers, and every kind of murderer. But I want to say, Mrs. Castor, you are in a class of your own." The sentence: 51 years to life in prison with no possibility of parole, at least 25 years for killing David Castor, 25 years for attempting to kill Ashley, and additional time for forging the will. These would run consecutively, not concurrently. Stacey Castor would die in prison. When the sentence was read, Stacey neither cried nor screamed nor gave any reaction. She closed her eyes just as she had done when the verdict was read a month earlier. Prosecutor Fitzpatrick left the courtroom and told reporters one final sentence: "If there is a scale for evil, she is on it." After the sentencing in March 2009, the Stacey Castor case entered a new chapter, but not the final one. David Castor Jr., David's biological son, and his mother Janice Pasene filed a civil lawsuit against Stacey Castor and Lynn and Paul Pulaski, the two friends who had signed as witnesses on the forged will. In 2011, the New York State Supreme Court ruled in favor of David Jr., awarding him compensatory damages. But full compensation was never fully received. Meanwhile, Stacey Castor served her sentence at Westchester County Jail. She never admitted any wrongdoing. She continued to claim her innocence. "I did not kill Michael Wallace. I did not kill David Castor. And I did not try to kill my daughter. And I will never say I did that. Never." She appealed repeatedly. All were denied, including a federal appeal. Her mother, Judy Eaton, maintained until the end that her daughter was innocent. She blamed Ashley and claimed her own granddaughter was the murderer. On June 11, 2016, prison staff found Stacey Castor dead in her cell that morning. She was only 48 years old, the same age David Castor was when he died. After investigation, the prosecutor's office determined that Stacey died of a heart attack. There was no evidence of suicide or foul play. She had served only 7 years of her 51-year-to-life sentence. When Fitzpatrick got the news, he immediately called Ashley Wallace. He later said, "Ashley made it clear she did not want to see her mother again. She had no plans to travel." Fitzpatrick told reporters something both painful and accurate. "She is still her mother. They went to Disney World together. They had good times together. But she is also the woman who tried to kill her." Then there were the two graves. For years, the two husbands poisoned by Stacey. Michael Wallace and David Castor lay side by side in the same cemetery at Stacy's request as they did when they were alive. On David's headstone was written Stacy R.'s husband. On Michael's headstone was Stacy's name and birth date, as if she had reserved her place right next to the man she had killed. This time, to find justice for the first time, they moved David to another cemetery, a place where he would no longer have to lie beside the woman who killed him. Ashley Wallace survived. With the help of therapists and loving people around her, she recovered from the most horrific betrayal a person can experience, being deliberately poisoned by her own biological mother. Despite it all, she did not turn to drugs or self-destruction. She did not want any more shows about this case. But her story is important even if she does not want to tell it again, because it shows that a person can survive the worst possible betrayal and still choose love over hate. In forensic science, the Stacy Castor case has become a classic textbook example taught across America. Computer timestamps completely dismantled the fake suicide note, proving it was written while Ashley was at school and she could not have been the author. Forensic chemistry showed that calcium oxalate crystals remain in the body even years after death and burial, helping scientists prove antifreeze poisoning on a body that had been underground for a decade. This case was featured in a full episode of Forensic Files titled Freeze Framed. Lifetime made a television film about Stacy Castor's story called Poisoned Love. ABC dedicated 2 special episodes to this case in 2020. Oxygen aired it on Exhumed and the Snapped series. Stacy Castor became one of America's most notorious killers, not because of the number of victims, but because of the incomprehensible cruelty of trying to kill her own daughter and then framing that same daughter for the crimes. And this case left lessons the criminal justice system should never forget. Cayuga County Sheriff Dave Gould said a chilling thing. If Mr. Wallace had been cremated, or if Mr. Castor had been cremated, we would never have known it was murder. Think about it. If Michael's sister Rosie had not demanded an autopsy, if Stacy had stopped after the first murder, if she had not been greedy for more money, more property, more control, she might have gotten away with it. This case showed how important it is to perform an autopsy when a young, healthy person dies suddenly, no matter how normal the initial cause may seem. Antifreeze was once called the most effective murder weapon because the symptoms of poisoning look like drunkenness or heart disease. The Castor case helped raise awareness of this danger in the medical and forensic community. Prosecutor Fitzpatrick summed up the case with a comment no one disputed. There is no word in the English language to describe someone so evil that they would kill 2 husbands and then try to kill and frame their own biological daughter. In the end, this is the story of 2 women. Stacy Castor died alone in her jail cell at age 48. No one came to visit. No daughter wanted to see her face. Yet until her last breath, she maintained her innocence. But Stacy Castor lived on in her victims. Ashley Wallace survived. She did not let the trauma she experienced in her life define her. She proved that even after the most horrific betrayal, a person can stand up, heal, and live. Stacy thought she had committed the perfect murder. She thought antifreeze was a poison that left no trace. She thought the fake suicide note would fool everyone. She thought her daughter would die and take the secret to the grave. But she forgot one thing: science never forgets. Crystals do not break down, even when buried. Computer timestamps do not lie. An antifreeze A word Stacy Castor never learned to pronounce correctly became her own conviction. The Stacy Castor case is not just a story of crime. It is a warning for every family. Lesson 1. Never ignore a suspicious death. Michael Wallace died suddenly at age 30-something, and no one demanded a thorough investigation. If Michael's sister Rosie's request for an autopsy had been honored, David Castor might still be alive today. When a young, healthy person dies without a clear cause, families have the right to request an autopsy. Do not let anyone stop you, not even a spouse. Lesson 2, pay attention to repeated patterns. 2 husbands die suddenly. Same wife, same story. Grieving widow, inheritance, moving on with life. If you see tragedy repeating with the same person, it is not bad luck. It is a red flag. Lesson 3, antifreeze is a real danger in every home. It tastes sweet, has no strong odor, and the symptoms of poisoning look like drunkenness or a bad flu. Keep antifreeze safely out of children's reach. And if someone in your family shows symptoms of intoxication without drinking alcohol, consider the possibility of poisoning and take them to the hospital immediately. Lesson 4, the most important. Trust can kill. Ashley nearly lost her life because she trusted her mother completely, drinking whatever her mother gave her without question. This does not mean you should suspect everyone around you, but it does mean that when something feels wrong, a strange tasting drink, an unusual request, an illogical explanation, listen to your instinct. Your instinct is there to protect you. Ashley survived. She proved that even after the most horrific betrayal, a person can stand up, heal, and live. And that is the greatest lesson of all. If you found this video valuable, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next stories. Every subscription inspires me to continue bringing you the highest quality content. Thank you for staying until the end, and I will see you in the next one.